Kristen, are you the host?
Yes.
Okay. It says that only the host can share.
Oh,
the
Brandon.
screen.
Brandon is the Zoom host. I'm
Okay.
the host introducing you.
Gotcha. Brandon,
Okay,
will do you want to add me for that so I can share it, or?
Yeah, I thought just making you co-host would do it, but who can share? All panelists.
Okay.
Okay,
Hi,
you should be
Jamie.
able
Hi,
to
Haley.
now.
Okay, great.
Can you put the YouTube link in chat so Jamie has it? Or Jamie, do you already have it? You're muted.
Hello, good afternoon. I think I do have it, but if Brandon has it handy, that would be even better.
It should be up and running, so if we can check it out.
Okay.
Hi, Haley. Thanks for being here today.
Hello.
Does Haley and or Jamie need co-host permission?
Hello, good afternoon. I think I do have it, but if Brandon has it handy, that would be even better.
Jamie is going to watch. So they both might unmute to ask questions at the end if there are questions on YouTube or in chat. I'm going to watch the Q&A. Haley's going to watch chat.
And so, Kristen, on the YouTube, it keeps your floating head, and then it looks like in the top right corner is whoever is speaking.
Okay, so that's interesting. So that might be a good setup for live YouTube to have the floating head method. It's 4 minutes till 2, just FYI, everybody, if you need a last drink of water or anything.
Kristen, your head is covered by the Zoom logo on YouTube. If you want to scooch over a little bit.
Well, what if I'm here, but then on my other slides?
Yeah, I just whenever I use it, I just move myself around on the slides.
I don't know, that's giving me a lot of credit, Haley.
Well, if you put yourself in the bottom left, like in front of the AUCD logo for now, then I think that would be a good spot.
All right.
It is not updating on YouTube though, so I don't know if it's taking a second for me or something, or it still shows you in bottom right on YouTube.
Either there's a delay or maybe.
Oh, there we go. There we go. It's moving. Okay, sorry.
Now I'm flying around the screen.
Yeah.
And Haley and Jamie, I just put the Dropbox link in the YouTube chat if people need the slides on there.
Sorry. Now I'm fine. So Brandon, I do.
Oh, sorry, I muted you. I didn't think that was intentional. Jamie, are you able to unmute? I'm sorry. I thought that was just the YouTube video playing on your computer.
No, that's okay. I have it. I have the YouTube and I see the chat. So Brandon, I do.
Oh, sorry, I muted you. I didn't think that was intentional.
We can measure the delay.
Yeah.
Of what we just heard.
The YouTube video playing on your computer.
Oh, that's okay. I do. So I have it. I have the YouTube.
All right, we're going to mute everybody at this point. It's almost time.
Kristen, we can start letting them roll in whenever everyone's comfortable.
Sounds good. Whenever you're ready, Brandon. Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started in just a minute. We're just inviting people into the webinar. Welcome, everyone. It's 2 o'clock and we're letting everyone in, so we'll get started in about 1 minute. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Addressing Mental Health in Youth with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities During Transition to Adulthood. Our presenters today are Maureen DeLongish and Kim Solans. Kim is the Occupational Therapy Discipline Director at the Institute on Development and Disability at Oregon Health and Science University. Her participation in transition to adulthood for youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities started in 2011 when she developed the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Transition Committee. In 2019, in collaboration with social work, Ms. Solans developed the Lifespan Transition Clinic. She is a current member of the Oregon Health and Science University Transition Task Force and the Lifespan Committee for the American Academy of Cerebral Palsy and Developmental Medicine. Maureen DeLongish is a licensed clinical social worker with the Institute on Development and Disability at Oregon Health and Science University. Maureen has over 20 years of experience working with children and families experiencing developmental disability and mental health needs. She began her career in early intervention in rural Nevada. She then moved into pediatric mental and behavioral health, where she specialized in working with children and their families who experience both developmental disabilities and mental health conditions. Currently, Maureen is part of many interdisciplinary teams at the Institute on Development and Disability, including the Lifespan Transition Clinic, which focuses on addressing the intersection of developmental disabilities and mental health. My name is Kristen Dahl. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a middle-aged white female with long blonde hair. I'm wearing a blue shirt and tortoiseshell glasses. And on behalf of the Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities National Training Center, I would like to thank you for taking the time to be here today. Please visit our social media and website, mhddcenter.org, for resources related to mental health and developmental disabilities. If you are joining us on Zoom, the controls are located at the bottom bar of your Zoom window. Please use the chat box if you have any comments or technical issues, and we will do our best to assist you. Please use the Q&A to submit questions for our presenters. We will read your questions as time allows throughout the presentation or during the optional question and answer time from 3 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. There is a hand raising feature you can use if you need assistance from the MHDD team. Other than those presenting the webinar, everyone is muted and camera access is turned off. This webinar is being live captioned. You can turn on captions in the Zoom window by clicking the CC button on the menu and selecting Show Subtitles. You can also change the size of the caption text by selecting Subtitle Settings. ASL interpreting services are being provided by Central Kentucky Interpreter Referral. The webinar is also being broadcast live on YouTube. If you are joining us on YouTube, please add your questions and comments to the live chat on the right-hand side of your screen. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on the MHDD YouTube channel and the MHDD website. We will be sending out an email following the webinar with an evaluation. We ask you to complete the evaluation so we can improve future webinars. The email will also include instructions on how to receive continuing education credits. Please join us for our next webinar, Promoting Resilience in Families During COVID, on March 1st at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Well, while we're waiting for, oh, there we go. Well, hello and good afternoon. We want to say thank you to the Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities National Training Center for hosting us today. And we're so happy that you all are here with us. We'd like to share with you what we've learned about addressing mental health in youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities during transition through our own transition clinic. And from now on, I'll refer to intellectual and developmental disabilities as IDD. Kim, can you go to the next slide? Seems like you might be having technical difficulties.
Can you not see it? It went to the next slide.
No, wait, there's a picture of your kids.
Oh, sorry about that. I hope you all like seeing my children.
Of course.
You see it now?
You're ahead one, but that's fine. So my name, as Kristen said, is Maureen DeLongis. My preferred pronouns are she, her. I am a middle-aged woman with brown hair. It's up in a bun, and I'm wearing glasses. Kim, did you want to say anything?
Sure. My name is Kim Solons. I use she, her pronouns. I am an occupational therapist. I guess I'm also a middle-aged woman. I have brown curly hair and I'm wearing red glasses.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Next slide, please. So we'd like to say thank you to Kirsty Coleman, Jan Staley, and Claire Palke, who have graciously offered to help us and be part of our webinar today. And you're going to meet them in a little while with some of their clips, video clips that we have. Next slide, please. So learning objectives for today. We hope you'll understand the purpose of addressing mental health for youth with IDD during transition to adulthood. Gain an appreciation of participating in occupation as part of mental health and wellness. We hope that you consider the importance of development when addressing mental health. And you'll learn about our current clinic model today for evaluation of transition to adulthood. And like I said, you're going to hear from youth and young adults regarding their experience with mental health and wellness during their transition to adulthood. Next slide, please. So what is transition? Well, it's a passage, evolution, development, or abrupt change that leads to movement from one life stage or place to another. It could be predictable, for example, going from early intervention services to early childhood special ed and then kindergarten. Or it could be something unpredictable like an accident or illness that changes the quality of life, or maybe going from being employed to unemployed. And transition is also developmental. So a youth who experiences IDD may be learning task independence in their teenage years, or they're wanting to find a job. They may need communication to better match their developmental age. And transition's also biological. And though puberty is going to happen, whether they're developmentally ready or not. Next slide, please, Kim. So healthcare transition is the transition from pediatric care to adult care, and it's important for all youth. The goal of providing uninterrupted, coordinated, developmentally appropriate, psychosocially sound, and comprehensive care. This can be a really difficult time and anxiety-provoking transition for people who experience IDD and their families. Typically, you know, they have had their pediatrician for quite a while. Next slide, please. Mental health wellness. That's our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. How we think, we feel, and act, how we handle stress, how we relate to others and make choices. It really affects our whole being and whole health. Next slide, please, Kim. And positive mental health is what we strive for. And I just love this picture that I borrowed from the ARC. Positive mental health increases overall wellness. It helps us to realize our full potential, cope with daily stress, work productively, and make meaningful contributions to our communities. Some of the factors that promote positive mental health are supportive and nurturing relationships, productive and meaningful work, and exercise and recreation. Next slide, please, Kim. Some factors that may contribute to mental health problems can be developmental, biological, life experiences, and or a family history of mental health problems. Excuse me. So developmentally, something we see in our work with families is unrealistic or inappropriate expectations at home, school, and or community. For example, expecting a 14-year-old who's functioning developmentally more like a 5-year-old, expecting them to behave as a typically developing 14-year-old is going to cause frustration for everyone. And then this can really lead to the youth feeling anger, insecurity, and sadness, and then lead to anxiety, depression, or other mental health problems. Biological differences in appearance, functioning, complex health issues, being labeled as different can be very difficult to cope with and cause negative emotions as well. And life experiences, of course, we know they can be positive or negative. We do know that this population is at high risk for victimization and oftentimes experience some form of trauma that's been undiagnosed and affects their mental health. And of course, a family history of mental health problems can affect youth through being shared genetically and or environmentally. Oftentimes what we see is due to parental mental health issues. The youth has not experienced safe, nurturing parenting. And of course, that would impact their mental health. Next slide, please. So we're going to show you a video clip of Kiersey, and she's going to share her experience with her mental health supports during her transitions into adulthood.
I'm 27. When I was in high school, taking care of your mental health meant like going to the school counselor and hashing out all your trauma. And I think that has kind of changed. I'm 27 now, and I just go on antidepressants, and that has improved my quality of life greatly.
And here's a clip from Jan, and she's shares her experience of how her mental health and wellness changed during transition from high school into adulthood.
I think getting through high school was one of the most difficult times of my life. It was the first time I had to work in school, all the while trying to make friends and figuring myself out. I was depressed for the better part of my sophomore year. I wouldn't talk to anyone unless I was absolutely forced. Senior year of high school, I experienced a change in my primary caregiver after my mother experienced a significant injury in an automobile accident. Due to that change, I moved into a group home and felt that there would be no choice in life or happiness. Making a friend of my own accord helped improve my self-worth and motivated me to advocate for things that I wanted in my life, like getting my own apartment with living caregivers, which I was able to do for 20-some years.
Thank you, Kim. So there are many things to think about in regards to mental health with transition, and both Kiersey and Jan shared some of these. High school can be a difficult time for many people, and oftentimes more difficult for people experiencing IDD. And it's really important to support people at the appropriate developmental level. We don't want to expect above or below their developmental level. We really want to be appropriate in our expectations. We want to consider medical issues and medications. Changes in medications can be problematic. Sexuality, we're all sexual beings. The more we teach about sexuality and sexual health, the safer and happier our youth will be. And again, developmentally appropriate information, is the key. It's important to know the appropriate names for body parts. It's important to normalize masturbation and the appropriate time and place to experience it. Exercise is important to mental health. Finding some kind of exercise that's developmentally appropriate, enjoyable, and doable every day. Housing, thinking about where the youth sees themselves living in the future. Do they want to continue to live with their family? Are they very social and look forward to living in a group setting or with a roommate? Do they want to live on their own? And then employment. What does the youth want to do? Are they interested in working? Are they interested in going to college or something else? And there are many opportunities, and vocational rehabilitation is a service that can support them in reaching their employment goals. Recreation, it's important for people to engage in fun activities. Again, what do they like to do? And caregivers, who will support them in their community? How much support does the youth need? Next slide, please. And unfortunately, we still have to think about COVID. It really has had a negative impact on many people's mental health. And for our population especially, it's caused a lot of anxiety. Of course, healthy relationships with family and friends is one of the most important factors in mental health wellness. We have to think about access to services. How will they access the services? How will they get around to the services? Think about communication. When youth are younger, parents oftentimes have really filled in quite a bit for their communication needs. And so this is a time to really address communication needs. And when we think about mental health treatment services, we have to think about it's going to take more time for communication and processing. There's different issues regarding confidentiality in regards to caregivers and interpreters. And what if, someone doesn't feel comfortable with having caregivers and interpreters in the room? That's something to be discussing with people. And unfortunately, we're still feeling stigmatization with accessing mental health services. Kim, next slide. Ken's going to talk about occupation.
Thank you, Maureen. Maureen just went over a lot of the different issues in mental health that we consider with transition. And to me, as an occupational therapist, a lot of these areas fit the definition of occupation. But to give you a full definition of what occupation actually is, it is defined as the everyday activities that people do as individuals, in families, and with communities to occupy time and bring meaning and purpose to life. Occupations include things people need to, want to, and are expected to do. As an OT, I use participation in occupation as part of my evaluation, part of my intervention, how we work on improving occupation, and then even our outcome. How do people feel about the things they're participating in their daily life? And this can be all the things Maureen mentioned before. It could be daily living, activities, chores, taking care of the home, taking care of your body, money management, health management, school, all those different areas for all people of all ages, but especially for transition aged youth. Sometimes it seems to take us. Okay, so occupation is something that is meaningful to the client. The most important thing is that the client finds this daily occupation important to them. Occupations influenced by performance patterns, so skills, habits, rituals, and also performance skills, which includes motor skills, how they move around, process skills, how they think, or even social skills and social interaction skills. Occupations occur over time and change over time. A youth who may collect money in their piggy bank when they're young may start learning how to hand money at a convenience store when they want to buy something. We also have to consider cultural differences when planning, and that's everything from eating and feeding rituals, what utensils are used, to even consideration of how much support will be needed as the youth moves into adulthood, or if there's expectations to leave the home or not leave the home. These are all things we need to consider within everyone's individual culture. And then occupations can be individual or shared. So I would consider co-occupations, things that youth may do with a parent or caregiver or teacher or personal support worker who helps them with the occupations. How do they share this activity together? This could be something like transfer into the bathtub. I'm supporting the caregiver moving them into the bathtub and also supporting the youth. And then I also, when I'm considering mental health and how that's related to occupation, I think about how occupational participation can be an enhancement or a barrier. So participation in something you really enjoy, whether it's a really fun leisure activity or the sport you like to do, or if you like to cook, can contribute to a well-balanced lifestyle where you really get joy out of your daily activity. Sometimes it could contribute to an out of balance lifestyle. So if we're thinking of youth in the teenage years, maybe they really enjoy video games. Playing video games might keep them up all night, which influences sleep, which may influence school performance tomorrow. So, or the next day. So we really need to think about, are these in balance or are they out of balance? Mental health conditions definitely affect participation in occupation too. We've certainly seen youth in our clinic who are experiencing depression, and it makes it really hard to participate in daily grooming tasks or to try a new community activity. I think about context and external factors, so the environment around them. We have to think, what access do they have to different community activities? COVID-19 has certainly made a difference in what's available for people in their community. we've also talked with families who may not feel safe going outside and exercising in their community. So we have to think about how that plays a role in participation in occupation. And then I feel like I'm saying occupation a lot, but occupations support other occupations. So someone who learns social skills at a young age may do really well participating in more social interaction or community-based leisure activities as they become a teenager or adult. And here are just some examples of some different occupations that we really think about during the transition years. So our youth is currently in a high school program, but eventually may have to transition out of that program into something that's a little bit less well known with new people, new peers. We look at healthcare management. So what I usually call taking charge of your healthcare, learning how to ask questions of your medical provider or learn how to use an electronic medical record or send messages through the electronic medical record. We think about dating and relationships and also jobs and vocation. If there's something that the youth is interested in and what steps do we need to take to get there? Now I'm going to turn it back over to Maureen. She's going to start telling you about our clinic program.
Thanks, Kim. So the picture on this slide is of Oregon Health and Science University. And as you can see, we have a tram. But why is healthcare transition important at the Institute? Well, we serve approximately 220 patients, ages 12 to 26, and who visit our interdisciplinary clinics per year. And they are youth and young adults experiencing autism, spina bifida, cerebral palsy, and ID. Yet, according to the National Health Survey of Children's Health published in 2016, 79% of Oregon families experiencing special health care needs did not receive adequate services for transition to adult health care. Next slide, please, Kim. So this is our, this slide is a picture of our lifespan transition clinic brochure, which reads, supporting your child in the transition to adulthood can be complex and even feel scary. Our clinic is here to provide support. At the bottom, there's a picture of a typical transition clinic team. In this photo, there is our client, who's Claire, her mother, a clinical social worker, and occupational therapist, Kim. And then there's a quote from self-advocate Kiersey that you've heard from. She says, transition from pediatric to adult healthcare is not talked about enough. We know that this is a need in our communities to help people with IDD achieve the best quality of life possible. Next slide, please, Kim. So the goal of the Lifespan Transition Clinic, or LTC, is to provide healthcare transition support to youth experiencing IDD and their families starting around the age of 12. We help families identify transition readiness, prioritize goals, and facilitate the steps to successfully transition to an adult system of care. And the goals aren't just the evaluation and identification of mental health needs or transition-related goals, but also the follow-up and connection with community partners who can help manage their care. And we found this is really one of the most important pieces, and we're still struggling with that piece. We have worked with partners, the primary care provider, the school, developmental disability caseworkers, whoever's working with the family. And we'd really like to have as part of our clinic someone who can just really help those families with all that follow-up. Next slide, please, Kim. So self-determination is the idea that people should be able to make their own decisions about their lives, and it's a central concept in both occupational therapy and social work professions. So our clinic follows a model of self-determination where we want youth and families to feel empowered to choose their own goals for the future. We focus on physical health and wellness, mental health and wellness, community participation, and supported decision making. And then this leads to a transition action plan and goals. Next slide, please, Kim. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our clinic model. So we start with a preclinical phone call to the family, which is typically done by a social work trainee. We explain the clinic to them and answer any questions they may have. Currently, we're doing virtual visits due to COVID, and that's been very helpful to many of our families who live outside the Portland metro area. And we're hoping to continue this as a choice of either coming in person or doing virtually. It's typically the youth and a parent who attends our clinic. The clinic runs for approximately 2 hours. Social work begins with the mental health assessment, and OT is there collecting information as well. And this way, we don't have to ask the family the same questions over and over. And both clinicians may jump in to clarify during each other's assessment or probe deeper if they feel like they need to know more. About halfway through, we take a 5 to 10 minute break, come back with OT doing their assessment. And again, social work's present, gleaning information. And then with the family, we make goals, provide recommendations and resources. And then we follow up with the family in 1 month to review the action plan, see how they're doing in accomplishing their goals, and see if they need support. We may do a 6-month follow-up depending on the family needs. We can participate in community meetings like an individual education program or IEP with the school, individual service plan or ISP with developmental disabilities services, or medical meetings to share information and collaborate as needed and wanted by the family. Next slide, please, Kim. So in our clinic, the providers are a clinical social worker, occupational therapist, and typically we have a trainee from disciplines including social work, OT, a family trainee, and this is someone who has a child or a family member who experiences IDD. Self-advocate, who is someone who experiences IDD themselves. And these trainees are part of our LEND training program or leadership education in neurodevelopment and other related disorders. I'm going to take a sip of water. This talking's driving me out. Okay, thanks for changing the slide, Kim. So why assess mental health in a transition clinic? Because we know that adults with disabilities report almost 5 times as often experiencing mental health diagnoses than adults without disability. And mental health just affects us throughout the life course. Mental health problems can affect our thinking, moods, and behavior. And many youth and adults who experience IDD and mental health issues have not had access to mental health services. And that's for many reasons. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through what a mental health assessment in our clinic looks like. So we start with asking about preferred pronouns. and honor them throughout the interview and report writing. We ask about the goals. What is the youth's goal? What is the family's goals? We ask about the current living situation. Are they financially, housing, and food secure? What services are they currently receiving? Are they receiving supplemental security insurance or SSI, developmental disability services, SNAP? And we ask this so that we can support them in accessing any services that they're eligible for that they're not already receiving. We ask if they have any cultural, religious, spiritual beliefs that are important to them and they want to incorporate into their goals. I like to ask both the client and care provider, what are the youth's strengths, skills, and interests? It's a really nice time to have the care provider, talk about things they like about their youth and the strengths, and then the youth gets to hear those positive things. We want to know, are they currently in school? Are they in a transition program? Are they working? Are there any emotional or behavioral concerns? And we use either the screen for adult anxiety related disorders or the screen for child anxiety related disorders, depending on the client's developmental level. This is a 41 question screen, so it can take a bit of time. We do the PHQ-9 depression screen, which is very short, only 9 questions. We ask about trauma, loss, stressors in the past or present that may be affecting them. Next slide, please, Kim. We note if there's any pertinent legal history, and it's usually in regards to guardianship. Does the client or caregiver have safety concerns? Does the client know what to do if they're separated from caregivers, if they got lost, if they missed a bus, things like that? Do they have friends, a romantic interest? Do they want to be more socially involved? Do they understand appropriate boundaries in relationships? Sexual and physical health. So I typically ask the family if they talk about sexual health within their family, and depending on their answer, I'll go from there. I ask the client if they have any questions about sexuality, even when I also ask them if they feel comfortable talking to their doctor about sexuality or any questions regarding their bodies. And even when a family doesn't think their youth or young adult know anything about sexuality or need to know anything, I bring up the point that everyone needs to know the appropriate names of body parts, what's appropriate and inappropriate in relationships, and that includes sexual relationships. I like to ask them where they are in transitioning to adult medical providers. Have they asked the provider they have now if they can continue with them? Have they asked for a referral to a new adult provider? And of course, we observe the client's behavior and mental status. And then we identify goals together, diagnose if appropriate, provide recommendations and resources. And I just feel like OT and social work disciplines really complement each other and work really well together in this clinic. We tend to overlap and look at many of the same issues, but from our different perspectives of mental health and occupation. Next slide, please, Kim. In the following videos you're going to see of Claire, her and her mother and caregiver have given permission to be videotaped in a simulated mental health assessment to be used for this webinar. In this clip, you'll see Claire and her mother answering some of the questions on the SCARED screening. In Claire's case, we use the child version due to her developmental level. Go ahead and play the video, please, Kim. Do you ever feel shaky when you're scared?
Sometimes when I have seizure, after my seizures, I get kind of wobbly and
Do you think that's because you're scared, or is that because of just because of the seizure?
seizure.
Okay. Do you get scared when you have seizures, or are you just so used to it now?
Are you scared when you have a seizure?
No,
Okay. I have nightmares about something bad happening to me.
You have nightmares about, do you have bad dreams about you? About Claire?
no.
Okay. You are halfway through and you're doing fantastic. When I feel frightened, it's hard for me to breathe.
Claire, when you're scared, do you get scared? I've never heard her mention being scared.
Yeah, she would, and she would say it if she was.
She would, and or even like a related feeling I haven't heard.
Okay. I get headaches when I'm at school.
Yeah.
Are those seizure related, would you say?
Yeah, they're neurologic.
Okay. I don't like to be with people I don't know well.
No,
No.
she likes all people.
So in that clip, you can see how a caregiver or the therapist can support the individual in the assessment process as they need it. So in this next slide, we're going to talk about sexual health a little bit. Go ahead, Kim. You go to the doctor. Do you go by yourself or does your mom go with you?
Mom.
Do you kind of talk to the doctor about what's going on, what concerns you have, or does mom do that?
Both.
That's great. That's great. Now, have you, I'm assuming you've started menstruating because you're 20. How is that going for you, Claire?
Well, she has an IUD, so.
Okay, so you don't
And
have to
she's-
worry about that right now.
So she's had that because she started menstruating at 10. And so.
It's a lot at 10.
Yeah, so this
Okay.
This has been the best solution.
That's great. And do you all talk about sexuality in your household?
I mean, not so much with Claire, but with my other daughter.
Is that something that you would want to do more of if you felt more comfortable?
It's funny. When we did this last time, we talked about this. If she was to express interest, yes.
So she's not asking questions yet?
No, she's not.
Yeah.
But if she was to start, then yes, we would.
Okay. And we have some great information, like there's a great sexuality across the lifespan document.
Okay.
I can share with you. It's really great. As you can see, I gently probe around sexuality. It could be a difficult topic for parents. And it's important to meet them where they're at, respect that, and then provide education. Though I have to say, it would have been interesting to hear what Claire had to say about this topic. Next slide, please, Kim. So in this clip, Claire is going to educate me on the zones or the zones of regulation. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
My English is good also.
Are you good?
I am good. I'm in the green zone today.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to ask you about, Claire. Can you talk to me about the zones?
The green zone means when you're feeling happy and you control yourself.
Mm-hmm. What zone are you in today?
I'm in the green zone right now.
All right. And how do you typically feel, like day to day? What kind of zone are you in?
Green?
Green?
What zone are you in?
Well, can you remind me of the zones? Because I can't remember all of them.
There's green zone. When you're tired, you're in the blue zone.
Okay.
And when you're feeling silly and excited and goofy, or if you're shy, you're in the yellow zone.
Okay.
Or if you're riding your bike, you're still in the yellow zone.
So it sounds like when you're in the Yellowstone, the yellow
No,
zone.
yellow zone.
Thanks for telling me that. When you're in the yellow zone,
You're out control yourself.
okay.
If you're in the green zone, you're in control yourself.
Okay. So I just was very impressed with Claire knowing the zones, and she seems to really have internalized using the zones, and it gives her the language to share her feelings and her moods with friends, family, and caregivers. I think this was a very important tool for her. Next slide. Kim's going to talk to you all a bit about her tools.
So as Maureen mentioned, I am also sitting in on the evaluation and taking some notes and listening in on how the youth and family are answering questions about the different areas that Maureen asks about. And I use a tool that's really well known in occupational therapy. It's called the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, or COPM. The reason why I say it's modified is I don't actually use the scoring that the test developers use for outcomes, but it really gives me a nice way to organize the occupational performance areas related to transition and help families develop what's important to them and an action plan. So there are 3 sections to this tool. The first one is self-care. And within this section, we talk about everything from daily living tasks to healthy eating and exercise. We'll talk about sexual health. We'll talk about instrumental activities of daily living, or IADLs, which includes daily chores, money management, time management. We talk about safety. We talk about emergency preparedness. Out in Oregon, we always need to be prepared for earthquakes. We talk about healthcare management. Have families talk to their doctor about when they might have to move from pediatrics to adulthood? Or does the youth, do they ask questions of their doctor? How much are they understanding about their body and their medical needs? We may talk about family planning too. What's going to happen in the future? Do you think you'll move out of the house and have a family with somebody else, or have children, or live with a partner, live with a roommate? We want to just start to probe that area a little bit so that families and youth start thinking about that. Sorry, sometimes there's lag. There we go. The next section is productivity. So this is things like participation in school, how's homework going, what are their plans for graduation, what type of diploma do they think they will be obtaining, whether regular or modified. They go into their IEP. What kind of services do they have? Do they have a transition plan in their IEP? We start talking about post-secondary school exploration. Have they talked to their school counselor? Do they know about community college programs if interested, or university programs? What sort of community participation do they do? How do they get around? You know, depending on what area of the state they live in, is there access to public transportation, or are they biking? Do they need their family to drive them around? Are there community-based activities they enjoy? Are they involved in spirituality activities with, you know, whether religion or other religious or cultural groups? And do they have any job interests at this point? What do they think they're strong in? Sometimes we ask the parents, what do you picture your youth doing? And a lot of the youth we interview will definitely tell you what they want to do for a job and what they don't want to do for a job. And then the last section is about leisure. This is also a very important daily occupation. What hobbies do you participate in? Is there anything in the community you like to do, whether a dance class or an art class or sports? How do you do with your peers and friendships? Do you have some close friendships? And are there any special relationships? So this next video shows how I take the items on this tool. So after the interview, I start to look and see what areas of occupational performance barriers there are and ask the family to rate importance. And this is actually from a few years ago. Claire's mom mentioned we did do this previously with her family, and you can tell it's a few years ago. We're in the home, we're not wearing masks, and I'm asking her mom to rate importance of some of the goals. So now on a 1 to 10 scale, so 1 not very important, 10 very important. How important is it to you to start finding adult medical providers?
I would say a 6, given that we still have, you know,
Okay.
3 to 4, 5 years.
And guardianship?
Oh, that's a 10.
Okay.
Because she's turning 18.
Yes. Learning about sexual health and healthy relationships?
I mean, at this moment, it's not very high on the list, maybe a 4, but if she was to show interest, then it would move up to, you know.
Okay. Starting to find, you know, vocational interest or day programs when she leaves school?
Like a 7 or an 8.
Okay. Housing or living arrangements when she gets older?
Taking my husband into consideration, an 8.
Okay. Creating a portable health summary for her?
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Like an 8.
Okay. So a couple of things about that clip. I know we talked about guardianship here. We will talk more about supported decision-making or shared decision-making later on. Again, we give families information on both options. Often they don't know much about supported decision-making, know a lot more about guardianship. We let them lead the interview of the decisions of what's most important to them right now. The other thing I want to mention is you notice Claire is not there at that moment. So she had decided she needed a break and she went into her room where she was more comfortable. When we have youth there, we are always asking them to rate importance. We feel that piece is needed. So sometimes we'll do a 1 to 10 scale. I've done things like thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. The other thing I can sometimes use is a card sort, a visual rating scale. So this is from the Child Occupational Self-Assessment. And the stars can be used for rating how important this goal is. So is it very important to you or not important? And we could do competence as well. So how do they feel about how they do with their self-care activities? Or how do they feel they do interacting with friends? So we can rate that as well. We wanted to give you another example of another youth who has come through our clinic. So we have a case study here. For background, our client TH is an 18-year-old autistic male, currently a senior in high school. He was referred from our autism clinic program here, and the referral concerns were to engage with the OHSU Lifespan Transition Clinic to develop a plan as TH transitions into adulthood, which may include services such as vocational rehab, employment supports provided by the state. We asked TH's goals at the beginning, and this is a quote from him. He said, "I hope I can actually be able to essentially have a focus like daily routine and be able to hopefully to work on entertainment and write as well." And then we asked his parents for goals. His father wants him to have a career, and his mother wants him to be able to defend himself. I want him to have a stronger personality. I want him to have a goal for growing up as he seems to be wandering. I want him to be more organized. So we do that whole evaluation, the mental health piece. Oh. Sorry, I don't know what happened to the screen.
While you're figuring that out, I'm just gonna give you a 5-minute. We've got about 5 minutes left for the 3 o'clock time, and then we'll stay on to take Q&A. So if you would like your questions in the chat, I know there's a lot in chat, and if you would put those in the Q&A, we'll read through the chat, but if we miss it, you might want to add those to the Q&A.
Sorry, I don't know how that got knocked off there. Seems like my internet is slowing down here at work too. Okay. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So the summary sheet, these are some of the goals that TH and his family chose. Learning how to budget, gaining a driver's license, finding a job, social opportunities with his peers. And as you can see, we asked importance for both of them, and some of their scores were different between the two of them. So it was much more important for him to gain a driver's license. And then here's an example of an action plan. So we took a goal, and this is what it would look like. I would give him some of the resources, give him a plan to get the audio version, give his parents some ideas of where they could get resources on something like a driver's license. And then we make a lot of different recommendations and referrals from this clinic. We may talk about mental health services. We may talk about getting back in with augmentative and alternative communication services. A lot of times there are youth concerns or family concerns that they're really not able to communicate their needs, and the school program might see this more as a behavioral issue than a communication issue. So we often refer back to our AAC specialists. We might recommend social groups or exercise opportunities. We talk a lot about supportive decision making and giving resources, and we talk to the Family to Family Health Information Center, giving them the connection there so they can connect with other families. Okay. And this is just some recommendations that we can hear from Kiersey and Jan about some of the things that that they have helped them with their mental.
My cat is an animal that is very instrumental to something that keeps me happy. I love working. I love doing presentations like this, and that keeps me happy and giving back to the community. Taking my meds, my medication is really important to me, and also doing a mix of medication, therapy, and naturopathy is really important to me. So I take vitamin D supplements, and I'm a brown person and I live in a very cloudy state. So like a very rainy, cloudy state. So that's really important. And I've also started walking every day on my walker, which is really hard to do and balance when you're disabled and working and going to school, but just a little bit of some kind of exercise has been really instrumental to keep me happy. And I also cut out dairy out of my diet.
When I think about it, writing down my feelings is very helpful. Going outside and walking around the block and getting fresh air helps. Communicating with my sister helps. She knows me pretty well and can get me out of my funk like no one else can. Sometimes I get away by reading a book or watching a movie. If I am frustrated or need to release some energy, I will pedal like a mad woman on my stationary pedaling machine.
Okay, real quick, I just want to tell you that we decided to, after a couple of years at this clinic, do a retrospective chart review where we looked through charts to try to see which goals were most important, which ones came up the most, and then we categorized them into our 4 different areas for our clinic model. So you can see there, community participation was really important, physical health and wellness, but there were also people who chose goals within the supported decision-making and mental health and wellness. We did take a further look into trends and found that of our clients that we reviewed, 57% had comorbid mental health conditions, but only 20% had current mental health services. So we did have our social work fellow do a quality improvement follow-up. And real quick, because I know we're running out of time, I will show you what she found. She did phone surveys with 10 different families and then reviewed the information and coded it. She found that of those 10 families, 40% of them were not accessing services. 30% had med management. 20% had both med management and psychotherapy, and 10% were in progress. Some of the barriers to care, one of the greatest was limited access to trained providers. Accessibility was also an issue. Some families said, it's just not needed right now. COVID-19 was a concern, as were financial reasons. And then supportive factors really were family support, having good insurance coverage, and having good case manager support. So just to conclude, what we've learned over the last few years doing this work in this clinic, addressing mental health services during, or mental health in general during the transition years is really time intensive, yet really important. We are fortunate enough to be able to do and bill for these evaluations through our clinical program, where we know primary care just often doesn't have the time to really ask questions related to mental health. Transition in general is overwhelming for youth and families. I think these evaluations can be overwhelming. They're overwhelming for us. They're overwhelming for families, even bringing these things up. Care coordination is essential. I feel like if I can get an action plan or connect with developmental disabilities or the school team, we have a better chance of implementing these transition goals into their current IEP or ISP. And really, this is well known, but access to adult providers services is just a large barrier. A lot of our adult providers are not as, do not know as much about intellectual and developmental disabilities and how to address mental health or what kinds of services and supports they need. We've really enjoyed doing this work. We're learning a lot. And, you know, whenever I think about how challenging it can be or how overwhelming it can be, I remember a former colleague telling me that, you know, Kim, you're calling these families and you're talking about transition, and some of them don't even know what they don't know yet about transition. So even just starting to bring these things up, starting to talk about mental health, maybe for the first time in many years, is just really important in helping to move towards adulthood. Okay, so we have some resources and some references on there. I'm sorry, I went a little over.
No, thank you, Kim, and thank you, Maureen. I just want to tell everybody it's a little bit past 3, so thanks for hanging with us. Kim and Maureen are going to hang out and answer questions, and we have several questions, but I did want to be mindful that it's a little past 3, so anybody who needed to leave, we are going to shift to the Q&A session now. All right, I'm gonna give you some questions. Got somebody in chat and on YouTube, so we might get a couple of questions from different spots. And I'm just gonna start going back to the first question that is in the Q&A. Do you know the source when you had the incidence of mental health disabilities? Do you know the source off the top of your head?
Yeah, that's from the CDC.
Okay. And then we've got a couple of questions about trauma-informed care or trauma supports that are supported in your program.
Yeah, so we don't really do mental health treatment. We, refer out to the community and try to find providers who do trauma-informed work. But I feel in my mental health assessment, I try to be very trauma informed, try to be respectful of the client and the family's needs and wants, and just thinking about what, could be traumatic for them or triggering.
I'd also add to that is that we're very open about if these are things that are not comfortable answering, it's okay not to answer. And please tell us when you need a break. And we do frequent check-ins. With the youth and their families to make sure that this is all still okay.
Thank you. Is there specific training for giving the SCARED assessment? Do you need to be trained to give that assessment?
No. And I put a link for the child anxiety screening in there, and if you type in SCARED into Google, you'll find copies that you can use.
And I will follow up and get resources that you guys have shared today and put those in Dropbox. We have the Dropbox link to your slides, so I can add those too for anyone who's going to that Dropbox to get those. Great. If you do diagnose during evaluation, do you utilize the DSM ID with the DSM-5?
I do not.
All right. And can you speak a little more about the emotional regulation color zones? Do you have a reference for that, or could you just mention a little more about it?
I think it's in our, go ahead, Kim.
Oh, yeah, there is a reference in the, there's a link, and I think the reference is in there, but her name is Lisa Kuiper. She's an occupational therapist, and the zones of regulation, it's often taught in classrooms as well, and we do them in, I think that's where Claire learned them or had, has learned them. Also, we use them through our intervention sessions and social work as well.
This one's a little more of a thinking process question. So in the scared interview with Claire, her mom made the decision at 10 for her to have the IUD. Mom stated that she does not talk about sexual health with Claire. Based on her age, does the IUD at this point need to be Claire's decision? How are these young adults making informed choices like the IUD if the parent and guardian are not having those discussions? Do you know if Claire wants the IUD at this time in her life? I'm trying to get a better grasp on understanding sexual health rights for teens and adults.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and it's complicated, of course. So Claire had the IUD inserted when she was 10, and she was not an adult, of course. And then at 18, Claire's parents did legal guardianship with her. So in all reality, Claire does not have legal say in what happens. And it's correct. Mom is not really talking with her about sexual health at this time. And I noticed, when we were talking about sexual health, that Claire didn't say anything, but I felt like Mom kind of jumped in there very quickly. So this is a challenge, and this is something that can't be worked through in a 2-hour assessment. But these are things that we can give recommendations for, give some education. So I hope that answers the question.
Can I add a little bit there too? I think that's also why Maureen and I like to see clients at a younger age. So we can start bringing this up at a younger age, start making it feel a little bit more natural for families to ask about this, and especially bring in that supported decision-making for families and youth who choose to do that, so that the youth knows that these are some of the decisions they're going to make with support, or, from their medical provider or their parents or whomever they choose.
Thanks, Kim. Does your clinic do much work with individuals involved in social services or the foster care system?
In this clinic, we really have not. Typically, I think what the patients that we're getting are families who are really interested in this transition clinic. We have not seen a family yet in this clinic who is involved in the DHS system. We do in many of our other clinics.
What type of resources can you provide for individuals who are seeking employment, but due to their disabilities, they are finding it hard?
Usually we recommend starting with vocational rehab, which is located in all of our counties, and are usually connected with school programs as well. So we're hoping that the school program, can make sure that that's part of it. And there are transition programs through vocational rehab as far as doing an evaluation they call it discovery, to see what their job skills are. There's training programs over the summer that occur. And then there's coaching, job coaching that occurs as well. We also connect with a lot of our other nonprofit community services here. There's another group called Community Vision that provides supported employment. So really it's about us connecting families and youth to different resources. If we can connect them personally, we will do that. And if not, hopefully the families or their caseworker can help them get connected.
Could you say more about the benefits of OT in treatment and how it differs from ABA therapy?
So occupational therapy focuses on, as I said, often occupation. So doing the actual activity in order to gain those skills in that area. And we may focus on motor skills or thinking skills, all sorts of things to help them figure out how to better participate. We might talk about adaptations to the environment. Oh, it's very different than ABA. I mean, we might use behavioral, behavioral supports, but it's certainly more of a top, for me, it's more of a top-down intervention where we really talk about and talk through the task and figure out with the youth and the family, how do we make this easier? How do you better participate in this? If you want to learn how to dress yourself, how do you figure out how to do that? And what can we do to support you in that?
Do you have a wait list to connect to the clinic?
Yeah, it's usually a couple of months long. We do it, Maureen and I see clients once a week, and we have another group that sees clients every other week. To be honest, we have a pretty high cancellation rate too. Sometimes it's hard for families to, we just getting connected to our virtual system and logging on, and families have a lot going on. So, we have a wait, but it's not too long to get in.
How is your program funded? Is it available to all, or is it private pay?
Well, so I bill for an occupational therapy evaluation, and we here at Oregon Health and Science University take all insurance. So we bill our state-based insurance. Maureen bills a mental health assessment. And some of our outside time has been the time to coordinate the clinic has been funded through our University Centers for Excellence on Developmental Disabilities grants. So we do get a little time that way.
So there's a couple of questions about, and this is the question that we get on most of our webinars, about referrals to healthcare, doctors. Do you guys have ways that you refer to medical providers with patients with individual and developmental disabilities? Do you have any suggestions for how to find providers to work with?
Do you want to answer that, Kim?
Sure. That is sort of how our clinic started. One of our neurologists in our Down syndrome program said, I don't know where to send my clients when they become adults. I can't see them anymore. Their issues are adults. So we started the task force or the committee, a long time ago to try to figure that out. And here are some challenges. I don't know we don't know every medical provider within the state. We don't know what insurance they take. If I know that they have some previous clients who experience intellectual and developmental disabilities, it doesn't mean their practice is still open. I work very closely with an internal medicine physician here who sees a lot of complex cases, and her practice is closed now. So that's a really big challenge. What our focus is helping families figure out how are you going to go about finding a provider? What are the things that are important to you? What kind of clinic are you looking for? What kind of one-page portable medical summary can you put together? And often that's what we show them. Like, here's how you put all your health information in one or 2 pages and provide it to your next person, because it's hard to tell families you need to teach your provider about you, but really you kind of do. And so we work more on empowering families to feel comfortable finding a adult provider that is willing to learn, because there are a lot of them out there that, again, just don't know what they don't know yet. And so we try to help in that way, and also say they can connect back to your pediatric provider. Like, they can always call your pediatric neurologist or your developmental pediatrician. Us in the pediatrics world try to be really open and connected, even to like adult OTs who I want to transition some of my clients to. Like, I'm here to kind of help you through that. Do you have anything you want to add, Maureen?
I think one of the things that families often don't even think about is just asking their current pediatric doctor or PCP, how long can you keep me? Because some of the PCPs, if they're general, they can keep them forever. Or do you know anybody who you would refer me to that has experience? So, you know, like Kim said, it's really hard. It would be nice if we just had this list of providers, but we don't.
Thanks. So that's a problem. We're in all states across the board, everywhere.
Yeah.
We all have that same. We wish we had the list. I'm going to shift just a minute to Haley. She's monitoring chat. So Haley, do you want to read some of the questions that you've got?
Yeah, sure. This one was towards the beginning of the presentation, so you might have touched on it during the presentation, but can you expand expecting no more or less than developmental ability? Many may have too low expectations, and this can be a barrier to helping individuals reaching full potential.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really what I'm talking about, is meeting clients where they're at developmentally. If you expect too little, you know, that's really a shame, because then they're not going to reach their full potential. And a lot of times, you know, we see youth becoming just so, you know, thinking they can't do things because they've been told that. So understanding where they are developmentally is so important. And expecting too much out of someone is just as problematic, because then, you know, the client starts feeling really bad about themselves because they can't seem to do anything right. We see that a lot. So either way, expecting too little or too much can just really be problematic. And so it's really important to know where the client is developmentally.
Okay, another one is, how is supported decision-making presented to folks that may be less familiar with it or more focused on guardianship as the best and safest option?
I really like the life course material that comes from, I want to say University of Missouri, Kansas City, because it has a really nice explanation of all of it and shows how you can ask about that. I also feel like the ACLU has really good information, but you're right. I mean, normally if families haven't heard anything about that, so we just take the time to explain that, you know, guardianship isn't the only thing you can do. There are alternatives, and in this way, the youth can continue to make their own decisions in different areas of their life and what they need more help in. So usually it's a time for us to just plant the seed about it. The other thing that's really nice with our Family to Family Health Information Center here, they have family trainers in supported decision making. So often we'll just refer our clients to a family advocate who's gone through supported decision making before and can really talk the parent through that.
And I just wanted to say, I think Kim's, you know, right on with the planting seeds. I mean, I think that is a lot of what we're doing in a transition, in our transition clinic, is just really, a lot of times families just haven't thought about any of these topics or many of the topics. And so just bringing them up, oftentimes they'll say, wow, I just haven't thought about that. And so you just plant a little seed and they think about it. And then, you know, they'll ask for support when they need it.
The other piece of that is, you know, we are in a very large academic medical center, and I feel like part of our role is to also educate providers about this, that, you know, guardianship isn't the only option, and you're you know, we'll get calls from outside clinics and we have to tell them, you know, they don't need to have guardianship. There's other things out there. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, but I think we need to learn about it from both ends.
And I believe those are all the ones that are in the chat that weren't in the Q&A. I think most people got theirs in the Q&A. Kristen, do you have any more?
do have a couple more. We have about 5 minutes, so we'll start wrapping up. If anybody has any last minute questions, there's a question about, do you help with transitioning to social media, or do you cover any kind of content about social media and internet usage? Is that's where everything lies right now?
We do. We see a lot of families that are struggling with media of all types. You know, one of the biggest things we're seeing is kids that are staying up, or young adults staying up all night, either on social media or playing video games. We talk about boundaries. We talk about, you know, there are tools that parents, adults can use to, you know, limit time or block things that they feel like are unsafe. But this may be something that we actually gets brought up around safety. Did you want to say anything else about that, Kim?
No, I think that's always a very important piece of what we do, and that comes out in when we talk about safety and we talk about social interaction. You're absolutely right that with COVID, this is the way most people are getting along. And we also know that social media is introduced at a pretty young age at this point too. So we talk a lot about safety with that and boundaries.
Yeah, and this, you know, this can start overlapping with sexual health and all of those things with, you know, relationships. You know, just we have to teach all of these things, what's safe, what's appropriate, so that people can stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of comments about how people would like to contact you, and so I will send out your contact info if that's okay. And lots of people who wish that they had a clinic in their state. Can you speak a little bit to the referral process of how you get clients for people looking to replicate it? And you've also got several requests of people who want to follow up and have you present on your clinic and how you guys set that up.
Well, thank you. Our referrals usually come from our internally from our clinics and from our pediatric clinics at OHSU. We do have some outside connections with medical providers who are not part of the OHSU system, so private practices. It's more about, we meet a client and we see them, and then their primary care learns about us and then wants to send more clients to us. We have a pretty nice connection with our neuro-oncology program right now. So those clients who have had cancer treatment sometime in their youth and are experiencing cognitive disabilities. And I'll be honest, the way we started it is Maureen and I said, you know what, we do these evaluations all the time. Let's get together and let's just start doing it. There are many things I would love to have in a clinical program like this, like a care coordinator and a self-advocate. It's just a regular part of the clinic. But at this point, you know, we're kind of run by a healthcare system that says you need to bill and be productive. So we bill for our evaluations. I don't have I don't have a time code on mine. I don't know if Maureen has a time code on her. So it's kind of just how you start it. You just say, you know what, we're gonna address these things in a clinical way, and we're gonna provide an action plan. And we're not doing everything we want to do to help families yet, but I think it's a start.
Yeah, I mean, Kim and I were seeing a lot of families in our LEND clinic, and they had a lot of needs around transition, and we just didn't really have the time to cover all that, because that clinic is really, you know, about getting this complex, complicated child with many needs diagnosed to get all the services they need. So, you know, that was part of us thinking, well, let's start a clinic where we can just concentrate on transition needs.
Our time together is up. Thank you all so much for staying and answering questions. Thank you to our audience for asking such thoughtful questions and for staying with us. Lots of thank yous in the chat, lots of appreciation for the work that you all are doing and for sharing with us today. Thank you, everyone. Be well, and we'll see you on March 1st for our next webinar. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.